It's been a really good year for Ringo Starr, and that means it's been a really good year for us too. I mean, he just turned 85 years old this past July, for crying out loud. He's got an award-winning country album. He's been touring. He appeared in concert with Paul McCartney at the end of last year. And according to a recent AP interview, one that just dropped a couple days ago, he says that he's going to be going back into the recording studio with T-Bone Burnett and record another country album. And he also says they've written a couple of tunes together, and they're going to be recording a Carl Perkins song. Now, he didn't name the song, but he did say that it was a new song to both of them. They'd never heard of it before. All he said was it was a very sad country song, very Ringo. And that's the other thing that Ringo's been doing right this year. He's been giving very good interview. He had another AP interview around his birthday this year, and also about that same time, he did a great interview for AARP. But this interview that just dropped a couple of days ago was really great. I mean, he was having fun there. At least it appeared like that to me, especially as he got near the end. And he was sort of asking everybody for a little help. He was talking about his kid picks, the picks that he does with that kid picks program that he started doing in 1995. He's saying, yeah, I really like doing that type of painting, and I wanted to get back into it. And so I went online and I tried to download a new version of kid picks. And he says, they just don't make it anymore. So he's kind of disappointed. And the interviewer kind of knew him. They'd done interviews before. And so the interviewer says, hey, Ringo, don't worry about it. Just maybe go onto eBay and maybe you can purchase like a floppy disk with it on there. And he says, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And then he looks into the camera and looks out to all of TV land. And he says, okay, you all heard that. Like, go ahead and get me that floppy disk, send it to this guy, and he'll give it to me. And then he was also talking about his other artwork, those stick figures that he does that are kind of sort of like, cardboard cutouts with the heads on top of them. And he usually does them in like groups of 4, I guess maybe for sentimental reasons. And he says, I like doing them. I just enjoy doing this. I can't do faces, so I just do what I do. I'm not Rembrandt, and I'm not trying to be. All I'm doing is just trying to be me. Ringo dropping those pearls of wisdom. And he says, you know what? I envision something for these stick figures that I do. I kind of envision an animated movie with them, or an animated series where, they're just these stick figures kind of being animated and running around in this neighborhood, interacting with all these, live action neighbors and people. And I go, oh my God, this is great. So in my mind, I kind of jump to, the movie Help, when the Beatles are in this, crazy house. They all kind of live together. And they're on just this regular street right there with all the other regular people. So this is what I'm envisioning, like these stick figures in this one crazy house all living together with all these regular neighbors. So here's Ringo once again asking for a little bit of help. Someone create this animated movie for him. And of course, he was talking about Beatles Anthology 4 coming up. And he was saying, yeah, you're going to get some old stuff and you're going to get some new stuff. And then he mentioned all of this extra footage, this unseen footage that's just laying around. He said Peter Jackson, when they were working on Now and Then, the making of Now and Then movie, as well as the music video for Now and Then, he says Peter Jackson ran into all this footage. And it sounded to me like it was like this footage from when they were making Now and Then and Free as a Bird and Real Love, back there in the mid-90s. All this unseen footage of them working together in the studio, because he mentions, yeah, there's footage of us. We're just in there. We're jamming together. We're playing a rock song. They're playing, Raunchy and that other song, Thinking of Linking. Okay, and another rock song that I can't remember. Ringo couldn't remember it either, and so neither can I. Blue Moon of Kentucky, that's it. Hello. Okay, so he remembers all that. So he's tying these unseen 56 hours together, with that performance. And I'm going, okay, yeah, I'd like to see that too, Ringo. Absolutely, but you have more pull than me. Because Ringo's saying, okay, you got this new episode 9 coming out that's only an hour, but you've got like 56 hours of this unseen footage floating around. Like, why are we not seeing all of it? And it made me think, and this is not the first time he mentioned it. He mentioned it back with that earlier AP interview, okay? But that time he just kind of mentioned it in passing. This time he's kind of fussy about it. He's saying like, what's going on? What's up with that? So Ringo's getting fussy. So we got to help Ringo out with that, please. Let's see that footage. And it made me think of this Paul McCartney interview that I was listening to maybe just a couple of weeks ago. And, they're interviewing Paul. It's 1987. And he's talking about, what's going on in his life. And one of the things that was going on with him is he's getting to know George and Ringo again. They're putting their legal troubles behind him. They're all getting friendly again. Because he says they're starting to work on this project, The Long and Winding Road. And he says it's this documentary that they're going to be doing, about the Beatles. And he says it's sort of like, the band and the last waltz. And he says, we've got all this footage. And he says, what? Everywhere we went, we had these cameras. And so we have all of this film footage of us, just doing all kinds of stuff. And he specifically mentions this time when they're over at John's house and they're just kind of walking around, just kind of hanging around. He says, we have all this footage of them hanging out at John's house. So I go, okay, where is this footage? Have we seen that yet? Where did it go? Why are we not seeing it? Is it not good? What is up with it? Or was it an anthology and it's another thing I'm just not remembering? So there's absolutely all kinds of footage that we can have. So please, this is, not just helping Ringo out seeing that footage, and Ringo has more pull than us, but, we have all this other footage that, let's help Ringo out. Let's release the footage, please. And then Ringo goes on to talk about touring and how much he enjoys it, how much he enjoys, being with the All-Star Band, talking about their great work ethic. They like working together, singing, everybody singing, their own songs. And he loves that and he hopes to continue doing it. And then he starts, talking about Paul McCartney. He says, I really got to thank Paul McCartney for writing that song for me. I get by with a little help from my friends. Because he says it was that song that inspired him to go out on the road. And it keeps him inspired. And so he's very thankful for Paul McCartney. That's Ringo, and we love him. And like Paul says, he's Ringo and no one else is. Thank you all so much for being here with me again. I really appreciate it. And until next time, peace and love one another. And keep your fingers crossed that we get all of that footage, all of it. Okay? Take care.